A mistake at gate 47. Katie Reed, a black woman of formidable competence but currently crushing fatigue, pressed her fingers against her tired eyes as she practically ran through Newark Airport. Her worn sneakers squeaked against the polished floor, and every muscle in her body ached from the 19-hour double shifts she had just finished at Brooklyn General. 19 hours of patching up trauma, watching vital signs, and desperately trying to keep her world and her crushing family debt from spiraling out of control. The clock on her phone showed 5:15 a.m. Her flight to the cheap medical conference she needed was boarding at gate 42, and she was at gate 18. After 2 years of non-stop work to pay off her sister's crippling debt, she desperately needed this break. Away from the beeping monitors and the constant, crushing weight of responsibility. Katie rounded the corner, her small backpack bouncing against her shoulders, the signs blurring together in her exhausted state. Gate 40, Gate 41. She squinted at the next sign. Gate 47. Wait, that was not right. She pulled out her phone, trying to focus on the boarding pass through the fog of fatigue. A tall man in a pristine black suit stood there, his face unsmiling. "Ms. Lee," he said, his Korean accent thick, nodding curtly. "We were concerned you might be delayed." "I'm not," Katie started to say. But another staff member, equally severe and wearing an earpiece, gently took her elbow with an iron grip. "Mr. Sung has a schedule to keep," the man stated, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Let's get you boarded quickly." Before Katie could form a coherent protest, she found herself being guided down a jetway. This was wrong. She knew it was wrong, but her brain felt thick, and the words would not come fast enough. Maybe this was some kind of ultra-secret executive service. Then she stepped into the plane, and her breath caught. This was not a typical luxury jet. The seats were sleek black leather, the panels polished metal, and the lighting was cool, sterile, and bright. The space felt less like a lounge and more like a high-tech tactical operations room. She had definitely just walked into a world of cold, absolute danger. "Before I continue, let me ask you something. My husband challenged me that I can't reach 1,000 subscribers. He said my stories are too intense, too real. But you're here, and that means something. Hit that subscribe button right now and help me prove him wrong. Let's show him what real storytelling looks like. Thanks for subscribing." And then she saw him, sitting near the rear window, bathed in cool light filtering through thick glass, was the man who made every alarm in Katie's exhausted mind start screaming. Korean, mid-30s, impeccably dressed in a dark bespoke suit that seemed custom-fitted for motion and power. His hair was cut short and sharp. When he looked up, his eyes, a shade of deep, unnervingly still brown, locked onto her. They weren't warm, they were assessing, cold, and utterly lethal. "You are not Han Min-soo's companion," he stated, his voice a low, gravelly baritone that cut through the silence like a blade. The sudden, chilling realization of her mistake jolted Katie fully awake. This was not a misplaced ticket. This was a grave error. I think I boarded the wrong flight," Katie stammered, clutching the strap of her backpack, her heart hammering against her ribs. The man rose. He was taller than she expected, moving with the deceptive stillness of a predator. He walked toward her, and as he passed one of the thick windows, the door behind her clunked shut with a decisive hydraulic finality. 2 other men in black suits silently positioned themselves by the entrance, their hands resting near their jacket pockets, near weapons. "That is an assessment I agree with," the man said, stopping inches from her face. His scrutiny was absolute. "The door is sealed. We have clearance." Panic, a sensation Katie rarely allowed herself to feel, spiked her adrenaline. "I need to get off. My friend is waiting. I have a job, a life." The man's lips twitched, not in a smile, but in a cynical acknowledgement of the absurdity. "I believe you, Miss Reed?" "Katie Reed." "I'm a nurse." "Miss Reed," he repeated, testing the sound like he was tasting wine. "I am Jay, and I am afraid we cannot turn back. We are on an exceptionally tight, unscheduled itinerary." He gestured to a leather seat, the motion curt and non-negotiable. "Sit. The destination has changed." Katie's legs gave out. She collapsed onto the plush leather, her brain racing to find a logical explanation for this level of security, this level of danger. Jay's next words shattered her reality completely. "We are going to Italy." People whispered about men like Jae Sung. People feared them. And today, Katie had accidentally walked straight into his world. Italy? Katie's voice cracked. As in, Rome, Italy. I don't even have my passport. You do. Jae nodded to one of his security men, who retrieved her passport from a discreet compartment. My staff takes liberties with documents when they believe they are securing a principal's asset. Asset. The word hung in the air like poison. Katie's hands trembled as she stared at her own passport. Her photo, her name, her entire identity in the hands of dangerous strangers. And not Rome, Jae continued, settling back into his seat with predatory grace. We are heading to the Amalfi Coast, a private airstrip outside Salerno. But why? What are you? What kind of business? Jae looked at her, and the coldness in his eyes intensified. A business, Miss Reed. That is none of your concern. All that matters is this. I need to be in Salerno in 7 hours for a meeting that cannot be rescheduled or missed. He paused, his gaze never leaving hers. You, unfortunately, will accompany me. The jet's engines roared to life. Katie felt the plane begin to move. Felt her life being carried away from everything she knew, everything safe. Who was this man? What kind of meeting required armed guards and stolen passports? And why did she feel like she'd just been swallowed by something much darker than a simple mistake? As the private jet sliced through the clouds, the silence inside was broken only by the hum of the engine and the terrifying click of Jay's finger on his tablet screen. Katie, the queen of composure in a crisis, found her calm shattering. This is kidnapping, she stated flatly, her voice surprisingly steady. Jay sighed, closing the tablet. Technically, you entered voluntarily, and this is not profitable. Kidnapping requires an intent for ransom. My intent is merely to arrive on time. He leaned back, his expression unreadable. I promise you this. The moment the necessity of your presence expires, I will put you on a flight home, first class, any airline you choose. You don't understand, Katie's voice broke. I have a sister I support. I have loans. I cannot just vanish. Jay looked at her, his expression softening slightly. A flicker of something that was not contempt. Exhausted, he noted, studying her face with unsettling precision. Like my pilot. You look like you haven't slept in 2 days. I worked a 19-hour trauma shift, straight to the airport, Katie snapped, instantly regretting giving him a glimpse of weakness. Duty, Jay observed quietly. It can be a brutal master. The conversation fell silent, but Katie's professional eye remained active despite her fear. She watched Jay, really watched him. He was too still. His jaw was clenched tight. The smallest muscle in his neck was pulsing rhythmically, elevated heart rate, compensating for pain. And as he shifted his weight, he favored his left side. You're injured, Katie stated, cutting through the silence with professional certainty. Jay's eyes narrowed instantly. The air temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Do not assume, nurse. I am not assuming. I am assessing. Katie's professional pride overrode her terror. You are maintaining an unnaturally rigid posture. You're favoring your left side, and your radial pulse, which I can see thumping in your wrist, is rapid. She met his dangerous gaze directly. You're in pain, and you're compensating. Jay stared at her for a long moment, clearly calculating the risk of her observation. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. A knife. A glancing blow yesterday. It was cleaned and closed, but the sutures are tight. I need it stable for the meeting. Let me see it, Katie demanded, moving to her knees across the aisle. Absolutely not, Jay growled, half rising from his seat. I am a level 1 trauma nurse. Katie's tone shifted into the voice she used in the trauma bay. Absolute, non-negotiable authority. If that wound opens mid-flight, you risk infection, hemorrhage, and you will miss your precious meeting because you'll be too busy bleeding out. The standoff lasted seconds. Then Jay slowly nodded, his expression resentful but yielding. Katie moved with the precision of her job. She used the first aid kit stored under a seat, carefully unwrapping the gauze. The wound was deep, running along his rib cage, stitched crudely but effectively. Who did this? Not a doctor, Katie murmured, her hands deftly cleaning the area with antiseptic wipes. My retainer, Jay replied curtly, his voice tight with controlled pain. He is better with a blade than a needle. As Katie worked, her anger faded, replaced by professional focus. She realized this man, who controlled a world powerful enough to bend international travel to his will, was just a patient in that moment, just a human body that needed care. She gently changed the dressing, making sure the pressure was stable and the mobility was preserved. "There," she said, tying the last bandage with practiced efficiency. "If you move too much, it'll tear. Relax. Breathe from your diaphragm, not your chest. It's tight." Jay looked at her, his face a complex mixture of surprise and gratitude. The killer's mask briefly dropped. "You are competent." "It's my job," Katie said simply, sitting back. "I save lives." She paused, meeting his eyes directly. "You almost certainly take them." Jay didn't deny it. Instead, he shared a fragment of his truth, his voice dropping lower. "My business is about stability. Protecting what is mine, it is a form of duty, like yours. Perhaps more brutal, but it is a responsibility nonetheless." The shared, tense intimacy of the medical intervention created their first fragile, terrifying bond. But what kind of man needed this level of secrecy? What kind of meeting was worth kidnapping an innocent woman? Katie was about to discover answers she never wanted to know. 7 hours later, the jet descended rapidly into a small, heavily guarded airstrip near Salerno. The moment the wheels touched the tarmac, the cabin sprang to life. Jay's security detail moved with synchronized purpose, weapons subtly deployed under their jackets. Jay turned to Katie, his expression deadly serious. "I am placing you with my personal security detail, the most effective protection I have. Do not leave their sight. Do not speak unless spoken to." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "And do not, under any circumstance, ask questions about what you see." A black armored Mercedes was waiting on the tarmac. They drove at high speed through ancient winding roads lined with cypress trees, the landscape shifting from stark beauty to imposing stone walls. Their destination rose from the cliffs like a fortress from another era, a secure, fortified villa perched on a cliff overlooking the Tyrrhenian Sea, a magnificent, silent stronghold. The architecture was ancient Italian, but the security systems were modern Korean. Cameras, guard towers, reinforced gates, armed men positioned at every entrance. Inside, the opulence was muted, heavy, and clearly built for defense. Katie was shown to a room, magnificent, with a view of the glittering Mediterranean. But the only exit was through a set of double-locked doors that led directly into a central guarded hallway. It was a gilded cage. Jay gave Katie a cell phone, a burner, she realized, pre-programmed with 2 numbers. "Your sister is fine. Your friend has been informed of a delay and a location change." His voice was matter-of-fact. "Use this to contact them, but do not share this address. If anyone asks, you are here as a private nurse for a high-profile client." He then left for his meeting, surrounded by 6 heavily armed men. Alone, Katie stood at the window, staring at the glittering blue expanse of the sea. She was a black woman trapped in an ancient Italian stronghold, guarded by a Korean syndicate. This wasn't a mistaken boarding anymore. This was a hostage situation dressed in designer fabrics. She called her sister Jasmine, lying smoothly about a private medical gig that had suddenly whisked her to the Amalfi Coast. "Katie, that sounds amazing." Jasmine's voice was bright with genuine excitement. "You deserve this, after everything you've done for me and Mom." "How is Mom?" Katie interrupted, her throat tight. "Same. The hospice bills are piling up again, but don't worry about us. Enjoy Italy." Katie pressed her forehead against the cold window glass after hanging up. Jasmine didn't know about the debt collectors calling at 3 a.m. Didn't know Katie was working herself into the ground to cover their mother's care and Jasmine's student loans. Didn't know Katie had just been kidnapped by a man who moved through the world like death incarnate. She just felt cold. Terrifyingly, completely cold. The next day, Jay's business kept him locked in conference rooms with severe-looking Italian men. Katie was left in the care of his head of security, a man named Minho, who watched her with the chilling intensity of a hawk. The isolation was crushing. To distract herself, Katie wandered the villa grounds under Minho's strict surveillance. Jay, having finished a tense morning session, approached her in a stunning hidden courtyard where orange trees grew in massive terracotta pots. "You look bored, Miss Reed," Jay noted, his face tight with stress. "I am accustomed to saving lives," Katie replied honestly, not watching grass grow. Jay smiled faintly, the closest she had seen to genuine amusement. "I promised you a taste of Italy." He led her to a small, isolated chapel on the property, centuries old with faded frescoes on the ceiling. It was silent, cool, and peaceful. "My mother was Catholic," Jay explained, his voice hushed in the sacred space. "When I was a boy, she brought me here. She believed that even the darkest soul needed a place of sanctuary." He paused, running his hand over the ancient stone wall. "It is still mine." Katie looked at him, seeing not the dangerous man who'd kidnapped her, but a boy who still needed sanctuary. "Your business?" she asked softly, her voice echoing against the old stones. "What is it really, this tension, the armed men?" "This is not software security, Jay." Jay sighed, running a hand over the stone wall, his shoulders sagging under invisible weight. "My grandfather built an empire, not a clean one." His voice was flat, emotionless. "Drugs, gambling, human trafficking. My father was no better. I was raised to inherit the elders' syndicate." The words hit Katie like a physical blow. Syndicate, mafia, criminal empire. "I have spent the last 7 years taking it apart," Jay continued, his gaze fixed on the chapel altar, "keeping the parts that serve the family, cutting the tumors that destroy us. The meeting here is critical. I am severing an agreement with the Neapolitan family." He turned to face her fully, and in his eyes was a desperate kind of honesty. "I must be precise, or there will be a war." The confession was stunning in its brutality. He was a mafia boss, but one trying to reform, one trying to save his family from the darkness that had consumed generations. "You're trying to save your family," Katie whispered, a deep understanding dawning in her chest. "And I am saving patience, still a duty." Jay's eyes met hers, and in that moment, they weren't kidnapper and victim. They were two people crushed under the weight of impossible responsibilities. But the truth was darker than Katie could have imagined, and it was about to get much, much worse. The tension in the villa was a living, breathing thing. Shouting could sometimes be heard from the conference room where Jay negotiated. Glass shattered, voices rose in fury. The walls themselves seemed to vibrate with barely contained violence. Katie found her chance to leave while Minho was dealing with an urgent communications issue. She had memorized the route to a small, unguarded pedestrian gate. She walked quickly, pushing against the fear, planning to reach a local police station. She made it to the edge of the property, the gate in sight. Freedom just beyond those iron bars. But then she stopped. Her mind, trained in rapid trauma assessment, kicked into overdrive. Where would she go? If she ran, she would be hunted by Jay's men, who would assume she was a spy sent to infiltrate the negotiations. If she went to the police, she'd have no proof of Jay's operation, but she would have her DNA, her passport, and her fingerprints connected to a known crime syndicate's headquarters. She would be instantly implicated in whatever darkness lived inside these walls. The chilling truth crashed over her like a wave. She was safer inside Jay's fortress than outside it. His protection, as terrifying as it was absolute. Katie slowly turned back, walking back into the courtyard. Her hands were shaking. Her breath came in short gasps. Jay was waiting there, his eyes heavy with disappointment and a flash of cold fury that made her blood freeze. "You left your designated area, Miss Reed." "I was thinking of my sister, my job. I need to be safe," Katie said, her voice trembling. Jay stepped closer, his presence overwhelming every sense. "You are safe." "You have made an error, Katie. I am a dangerous man, yes, but I do not hurt those who are under my protection." He reached out and gently traced the scar on his rib cage, where she had changed the dressing days ago. "If you had walked out there, you would have been picked up by someone who would have asked far more brutal questions than I." His voice softened, became almost vulnerable. "Your presence here is a problem for me. It is a weakness, but for the first time in years, I can breathe when you are near." He stepped even closer, his hand moving to cup her face. "Stay, not because I force you, but because it is necessary. Stay, and let me keep you safe." Katie's tears spilled over. How can I trust you? I am not asking you to trust blindly. Jay's thumb brushed away her tears. I am asking you to give me the chance to finish this. The blood stops with me. I am fighting for a legitimate future for my family. But I must fight the old monsters first. His forehead pressed against hers. Give me that chance, Katie. I will not destroy you. I will build something for you. The intensity was terrifying and beautiful in equal measure. But before Katie could respond, heavy footsteps approached. Minho appeared, his face pale, speaking rapidly in Korean to Jay. Jay's expression transformed instantly into cold fury. As night fell, the negotiations intensified to a breaking point. Katie sat in the library, trying to read medical journals. But the silence was too oppressive. She felt Jay's tension through the very walls. Jay finally emerged from the meeting. His face pale, his suit jacket off. He looked defeated in a way she'd never seen. He walked straight to the small hidden bar and poured a glass of amber liquid, his hands slightly shaking. It failed, he said, his voice flat and emotionless. The Severance did not go well. They believe they have leverage. They believe they can force me back into the old ways. He downed the drink in one swallow. It is a declaration of war, not a peace treaty. Katie went to him immediately, concerned only with his physical state. Your wound, is it okay? It is fine, he dismissed, but his voice was tight with pain. I need you to listen. I am moving you immediately to a small, secure house on the property. My men and I will be awake all night. Do not leave the room until I come for you. His eyes locked onto hers with deadly seriousness. And do not make a sound. As Jay turned to summon Minho, Katie noticed a glint under the heavy antique desk where Jay had been meeting. She walked over and knelt down, pulling out a small metallic object. It was a silenced Glock pistol, expertly concealed. Her blood ran cold. This was not a business or a duty or a family. This was murder. This was war. She realized the terrifying truth. Jay was being hunted, and she was the bait, or the collateral damage. Katie dropped the gun as if burned. She looked at Jay, her eyes blazing with fear and rage. A gun, a silenced gun. You hid this under a table. Her voice shook with emotion. You are not a businessman reforming his empire. You are a killer trying to survive a turf war, and you brought me here. Jay didn't flinch. He walked over, picked up the weapon, and looked at it without emotion. Yes, Katie. I am. His honesty was brutal and absolute. I did not want to show you this, but yes, I am the leader of the Elders Syndicate, and I am fighting for the very soul of my family. I save lives. I swore an oath. I cannot be a part of this, Katie yelled, wrapping her arms around herself. You are not a part of it, Jay roared back, his composure finally breaking completely. But you are a part of me. For 3 days you have looked at me like a person, not a position. You saw a patient, not a monster. He stepped forward, his voice cracking with raw emotion. I brought you here because you were the only real thing I had touched in years. And I swore I would keep you safe, and I will. But you need to understand the choice. Tears spilled down Katie's face. The choice is whether I trust a man who lied to me. The choice is whether I let my life be ruined by a world of blood and chaos, or go back to my hospital, where I can actually control who lives and who dies. Jay stepped forward and cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his gaze. I am not asking you to join me. I am asking you to trust me to finish this. The blood stops with me. I am fighting for a legitimate future for my family, but I must fight the old monsters first. His eyes were desperate, pleading. Give me that chance, Katie. I will not destroy you. I will build something for you. The argument hung in the air, raw and desperate and impossibly fragile. Then the world exploded. The deafening sound of an armored car crashing through the main gate shattered the night like thunder. Attack. Automatic weapons fire erupted instantly. Glass exploded inward. Shouting in Korean and Italian filled the villa. Minho, Jay yelled, pushing Katie behind a massive pillar. He drew a second pistol from his waist and fired 3 precise shots through a window, hitting targets outside. Chaos erupted. Guards were shouting in Korean. More glass shattered. The rival faction had breached the courtyard. Jay was fighting, moving with brutal, efficient grace that spoke of years of training and violence. Then a sudden explosion rocked the building. The shockwave was massive, throwing furniture and debris through the air. Jay, mid-movement, was thrown backward against a stone wall, landing hard on his left side, clutching his chest. His breathing became labored, ragged. His face grayed instantly. "Jay!" Katie screamed, seeing the familiar signs of pneumothorax, a collapsed lung, likely from broken ribs. He was struggling for air, his body shutting down. Minho was pinned down by heavy fire. There was no one to help Jay, no one except Katie. Her mind snapped into focus. The chaos, the guns, the blood, it all vanished. She was not a civilian. She was a trauma nurse, and she had an injured patient in severe distress. Katie grabbed Jay's face, assessing his breathing, checking his pupils. "Jay, listen to me. You have broken ribs, potentially a collapsed lung. I need to relieve the pressure." She grabbed a large sewing needle and a plastic tube from a nearby decorative piece of tubing, improvised equipment. She found the second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line, the familiar anatomical landmark burned into her brain. Minho, fighting his way towards them, saw her moving and screamed in Korean, assuming she was attacking Jay. "Stay back!" "Minho," Jay gasped, his hand weakly holding Katie's wrist, giving her permission, giving her trust. With steady, practiced hands, Katie executed a needle decompression, a risky emergency procedure, sinking the needle into his chest wall. A sickening hiss of pressurized air escaped through the makeshift tube. Jay gasped, then took his first proper deep breath in 30 seconds. Katie stabilized the needle and looked at Jay, her face smeared with soot and sweat, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You are stable for now, but you must get out." She had just used her medical oath to save a Mafia boss's life in the middle of a gunfight, proving her loyalty and competence beyond question. The attack was repelled, brutally and decisively. But the trauma of the gunfight left Katie emotionally shattered. She sat in the blood-stained courtyard, her hands still shaking, unable to process what she'd just done. Jay, recovering in a secured operating theater brought in by his personal physician, looked at Katie with eyes full of emotion she'd never seen before. "You saved me. You saved the syndicate." His voice was thick. "They will never forget this, Katie." He kept his promise. He flew her back to New York, accompanying her all the way to her modest apartment building in Newark. He saw her world, the cramped spaces, the peeling paint, the overwhelming scent of fried food. And he did not judge. Before he left, he pressed an envelope into her hand. "Your sister's debt, paid. Your mother's hospice care, covered indefinitely. You are free, Katie." Katie's tears came hard and uncontrollable. "Why would you do this?" Jay's smile was sad and beautiful. "Because you looked at me like I was worth saving, and I want to be worthy of that." 6 months later, Katie was back in the ICU, but her world was transformed. Her sister's loans were mysteriously paid off. Her mother's care was covered. She no longer worked triple shifts just to survive. One Tuesday afternoon, Katie received a flight itinerary and a designer Italian suit, perfectly fitted, delivered to her locker. A note from Jay read, "The fighting is done. The building begins. I need my architect." She flew to Milan. Jay met her at the airport, not with guards, but alone. He took her to a massive, newly acquired office building near the city center. "I have kept my promise," Jay said, leading her into the sparkling state-of-the-art facility. "The illicit operations are done, cleaned. They are all being folded into a legitimate, international investment firm." He led her to the top floor, where the walls were covered with blueprints. "And this is what you built." He gestured to a large sign. "The Reed Sung International Medical Aid Initiative. It is a high-impact global NGO funded by my clean assets, dedicated to establishing medical infrastructure in vulnerable communities. Your competence, your focus, your oath. It is too valuable for a single trauma bay, Katie." Jay took her hand. "I need you to run it. You save lives. I provide the platform and the protection. We work together." Katie looked at the man who was still dangerous, still powerful, but who had fundamentally changed his world to make space for her. He hadn't asked her to quit nursing. He had asked her to expand her purpose. "I'm in," Katie said, her voice shaking with emotion, a genuine smile finally lighting her eyes. Jay smiled back, a true, warm, beautiful smile that finally matched the goodness she had glimpsed within the monster. "Welcome to Italy, my love. Our world is finally ready for you." If this story moved you, hit that like button right now. And if you want more stories about people who find light in the darkest places, subscribe. My husband said I can't reach 1,000 subscribers. He said these stories are too intense, too real for people to handle, but you handled it. You stayed until the end, so prove him wrong. Hit that subscribe button and let's build something beautiful together. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you in the next story.